Okay, more about people. So we've identified some people, and we're going to recruit them through the last company that presented. Now we need to retain them, coach them, and mentor them, naturally. So we do have an expert in the room who knows all about that. So somebody known to most of you, Neil Osment, is going to talk to us about recruitment, retention, coaching, and mentoring. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay? I don't have any military background. My only claim to fame is my father was in the Air Force and he got the MBE, and glad that he served as well. However, what I do have perhaps in common with the two last speakers, I have a passion for making sure that we find good people and that we keep them. And people who saw me in January presenting, they saw as part of my presentation about what's happening with employment. And because of what my company does, we've been involved in employment and recruitment and finding how jolly difficult it is. So it's great to know that Dan's got an organisation that's going to help feed people into, potentially, into our industry. I said to Tim, this is it, isn't it? I said to Tim, I wanted to talk about people because not only do I have a passion for statistics about our industry, but I have a passion about our people. And I think we've got a problem coming up for our industry. I know we've got a problem on recruitment because we're trying to recruit, and we've found that it's become at least 50% harder in the last 6 to 9 months trying to find people, never mind get them to come and stay. So I wanted to talk about it. And the other bit was, having found them, I'm very worried that we may not be at our very best at keeping them in our industry. So what are the things that we could do? So, good, stay there. So, I don't know if you look at statistics, but I love statistics, and one of the ones I saw is that in COVID, just at the peak of COVID, some 4 million people in the UK were not employed. And then I looked at another statistic, which is the one they say now. They say that 1.1 million people are are statistically unemployed. I suspect probably quite a lot of them don't wish to work, or a lot of them cannot work or will not work. So there's been a massive drop. Why is that? Lots of people during COVID chose to retire. A lot of people chose in their 60s that they had enough money and they'd had enough. Also, a lot of people in their 50s had enough money and they'd had enough. So actually a significant amount of our workforce decided that they wanted to stop working. And we may know individuals who've done that and go, oh yeah, okay, I noticed that. The second thing is, very obvious one because of what happened with Brexit, there's a pool of people who were wanting to go home during Brexit, to where their family are. And a lot of people were lost to the UK labour force. And then the third one, less so. There are less youngsters coming into the workforce now. That's just because of population numbers. So in all, 2.9 million have not come in. So 4 million we had at the peak of COVID, 2.9 for three reasons are not in the workforce. So that might explain I can't seem to find many people, Neil. Actually, that thing, I can't seem to find people, Neil. I had one of my customers said to me, I've spent £85,000 on recruitment companies getting people in. And he said, I don't know who I've got. 85,000. And it was a series of, and I was thinking, well, why is this? What's going wrong? What have they been doing in terms of recruitment, and why aren't they perhaps retaining people? So I took on because that's what we do in our company, I took on the opportunity of seeing if we could do it better, or could we do it? So we undertake some things, and these are, and Tim was talking about best practice for the SBA, and for me, this is best practice. So what are the things that you should do to make sure that you have the best opportunity of recruiting somebody and retaining them for the longest period of time? The first is make sure you've got a job description. And it's amazing when someone, I've got a job description. And I've seen job descriptions and they go, you've got to sell boxes, or you've got to make boxes. And they can be as basic as that. And they go, oh, it's okay, we've got a job description. not very helpful for a recruiter, because you need to know, well, I want them to make boxes on a particular type of case maker, but I also want them to be multi-skilled, so I want them to be able to make things on a particular type of die cutter, and when they're not busy, I want them to be skilled enough to be able to mend tooling. So a bit more detail was needed. So a good job description as a great start. Advertising, and where do you advertise? For us, we've got two places that are particularly good, and I'll tell you our secrets, but people get us to do these things because they haven't got time to do these things. But Indeed and LinkedIn are excellent, and excellent places to be able to find good people. And that seems to be a place that's working well now. The bit that really I think we had as added value is this screening interview. I've been amazed by people who said, God, it was brilliant. The person, they were just amazing. They were so like me. So I go, well, tell me how the interview went. He said, well, I told them about this, and I told them about that, and I told them about the other thing. And they nodded, and then I told them about, yeah, they were just like me. Invariably, they're just like you, because I said, well, who did the talking in the interview? He said, oh, yeah, I did quite a bit. Actually, they did 90% of the talking. So a lot of people I find don't know how to interview very well. Ask the question, shut up. And then profiling, so adding another thing in there, part of the thing, particularly with salespeople, and that's the background I've come from. So salespeople tend to be jolly difficult to be able to tell if they're any good, because they come to an interview, they give you their best view of them, they probably do talk, getting underneath their skin. So I use a version of DISC, which is a combination of DISC and emotional intelligence, and that really flushes out some fantastic things. Great opportunity to ask questions. And so what we do is furnish our customers invariably with the shortlist interview opportunity. So here's some questions you could ask. Ask them, shut up. So that's our approach on recruiting. And I called it recruiting talent because we're not a recruitment agency. We're what are we? We're a boutique consultancy, and we just help our customers. That's ever so helpful because our customers come to us, and we already know our customers. So we can screen interview those people, knowing our customers we do. But other people may not, and as Dan indicated, there's quite a lot of ways of being able to overcome that. The other thing is about keeping people, and I'm really quite amazed at what people don't do. They don't do it often because they're incredibly busy. And you think about what's happened in the last year for us as an industry. So our industry grew by nearly 10% in 2021. Well, our industry grows at best at 2%. So at 10%, that must have made people probably a tad more busy than they wanted to be. So all the good practices go by the wayside. And I've talked to a number of people. I said, so, how good is your induction? Do you make sure that everybody's into? Yeah, we got them in, and we told them, and we gave them the booklet, and that was half a day, and then they went off. For 3 weeks, they sat at a desk because all the other people are so busy. So they had 3 weeks induction, but if they learnt by osmosis at best, many people don't. So we found that induction people fall flat in that area. The other thing is 100-day plan. I'll ask the question, who undertakes 100-day plans in their companies? Is that Kate?
Yes.
Kate Hulley. I knew you would. Well done. Who else? Good. But yes, you ought to. So Chris. So 2 people very shyly put their hands up. Is that it? Okay. Who knows what a 100-day plan is? So there's a third person. Ace. Anybody heard of the President of America? Okay. Does anybody look at the first 100 days that the President of America undertakes? Does he talk about it? Does he say that those are significant times in his time? I'm American president since I was a kid, so I've always looked and go, yeah, actually, that's obviously good practice. Now, the fact that quite a lot of people haven't put their hands up, please, if you take nothing else away today, make sure you've got a 100-day plan for those people that you're bringing in. Because if you've got a 100-day plan, there's a jolly good chance they'll stay. If you don't, there's an extremely good chance they'll leave. And I've seen people leaving. So 100-day plans, it's about making sure that they know the job that you want them to do, and that they also say, do you know what, I didn't quite get that thing that I did on week 1. Can I revisit it? So it's the opportunity to make sure you absolutely hone those skills, and people take certain things on in different ways. So 100-day plan, you should do that. Regular one-to-one, regular reviews and one-to-ones. Again, it's usually the first thing that falls away, but it's just amazing the difference that you can find, that you can make by having 5 minutes with somebody for a one-to-one. If you can have 10, 15, 20 minutes for a one-to-one. If you can do it weekly, that's great. If you can do it online, I do it with my team. We have half an hour meeting. I make sure I have a one-to-one with at least one of them once a week through that. So I've done it, I know, 4 times in a month with each of the members of my team. And then I'll come on to the next bit. So those are really good best practice. And if you're not doing them, and the show of hands would indicate that there's room for improvement, do look it up. Look up 100-day plans. And then the next 2. So I want to talk a bit about coaching. If there's any comparison with Colin and myself, it's, qualify yourself. And one of the things I started to do was undertaking coaching. I didn't know what it was. I just knew that I had rapport with people, and people would tell me things, and I go, oh, yeah. And they go, oh, it was really great talking with you, Neil. That was really helpful. And I go, why? Or actually, I kept quiet for about 5 years and just go, oh, that's great. And I thought, well, this isn't right. I ought to somehow develop a skill and be better, because if I'm better for the person who's talking to me, they'll get more out of it. And so I wanted to understand what's the difference between coaching and mentoring, because I could tell you something about selling cardboard boxes. So I guess I had the mentoring bit, but I also knew about managing people and managing teams in the corrugated industry, in the paper packaging industry. But coaching, I wasn't quite sure. So I wanted to know what's the difference between coaching and mentoring, and shall I get qualified in coaching? So I did. So for those people, just a fast track for you, what's the difference? I should have asked you, shouldn't I? I shouldn't have thrown it to you. What do you reckon the difference is between these two? Now that I've given it to you, what do you reckon the difference is? Go on then, Kate.
Coaching, trying to encourage the person that you're coaching to come up with the answer, and mentoring, just sharing your experience.
Spot on. Did you all get that? Yeah? Okay. So coaching, the great thing about coaching, invariably neither you nor them know the answer necessarily, but by intelligent questions by the coach, or sometimes intuitive. A strong believer in that. You ask the right question at the right time, and you get that person to, they explore those thoughts and ideas. So definitely coaching, drawing out of people the opportunity for them to improve their performance. Mentoring, great opportunity. I said up there about sector knowledge. I could tell you about the whys and wherefores of the dynamics of the corrugated industry, the folding carton industry, the hexagon paper industry, and the whole of Europe. I could tell you all about that if you wanted to. Please wake up at the back. But things about our industry, could tell you about that. And there's a lot of people in the room that could do that. And mentors have got a vitally important role to play, but coaching also. But you should undertake, if you can, both of these things with your people. And coaching is probably encouraging the individual in your organisation to feel that they are contributing as an individual and they've got a part to play. If they feel disconnected, they'll leave and they'll go somewhere else. And there's lots of people paying slightly more money, offering slightly better conditions, apparently, in our industry. So very important. And I think the mentoring thing is vitally important, because don't allow people to undertake whatever the jobs are without fully knowing what's happening. And I've seen this missing in our industry. Chuck them on a machine and tell them the minimum. But make things mean something for them. And then this one here. So these are, I think, the do's and don'ts, and hopefully good practice that would encourage you to think about. Is that me? It is. Hope that was useful.
I think Neil may have undersold himself there, which doesn't happen often. But we don't have large HR departments in our businesses. I'm talking about the sheep plants here. Some of you machine suppliers, big companies, probably do have an HR department. But certainly, little old dairy pack in Shropshire does not have an HR department. HR is taken care of by the finance department, because it's one of those things we have to pay people, okay? So when we were thrown a bit of a curveball, I'll share with you, 3 months ago, my sales director handed in her notice. She wants to go and do something totally unrelated to cardboard, fed up with our industry, wants to go and chase her dreams. What the hell do I do? I've engaged with Neil because Neil has the expertise. He gave you a plan of how to get the job description, how to get it out there, how to advertise it. One thing he didn't really push hard on is the filtering. Now, it's a little bit contrary to what's been said, but we've had, I think, over 80 applicants since we advertised the job 3 weeks ago. Now, we do not have the resources at little old Dairy Pack in Shrewsbury to go through and filter 80 applications and work out who the hell we have our first interview with, let alone second interview, third interview, whatever. Because this is a critical role. My sales director will be effectively my heir apparent, will take the business forward when I've hung up my suit. So it's a very, very important role for us. So we don't have the infrastructure to do it ourselves. So he has undersold himself. There is a facility there to get key roles and lesser roles out there and let somebody else do the hard yards. And then we get involved when we've got a filtered short list of people, and hopefully we end up with the right person. So, sorry, but you did undersell yourself, Neil. Okay.